Hello everyone, this is Shirisha. Today I am going to discuss about buffer overflow attack. A buffer overflow attack is a critical software vulnerability that occurs when a program attempts to store more data in a memory buffer than it was allocated to hold. In low-level languages such as C, memory management is handled manually, and functions like getS, scanf without length limits and string copy do not check the size of the input being copied into a buffer. When an attacker provides input that exceeds the buffer size, the access data spills over into adjacent memory locations on the stack. In stack-based buffer overflow, this overflow can overwrite important control information such as the saved frame pointer and the return address of a function. By carefully designing the input, an attacker can replace the original return address with a new address that points to malicious code injected into the program's memory. In this demonstration, the buffer overflow attack is performed inside the seed Ubuntu 20.04 virtual machine running on Oracle VirtualBox, which provides a safe and controlled environment for security experimentation. The vulnerability program is compiled with security protections disabled so that the internal memory behavior can observe clearly. Normally, modern operating systems implement defensive mechanisms such as stack canaries, non-executable stacks, and address space layout randomization to prevent such attacks. However, in seed labs, these protections are intentionally turned off to help learners understand how buffer overflow attacks work at a low level. The program allocates the fixed size buffer on the stack and reads user input without validating its length, making it vulnerable to exploitation. During the attack process, the attack first analyzes the memory layout of the stack to determine the exact offset between the buffer and the return address. Then, a specially crafted input is created that contains padding bytes, shellcode, and a new return address that points back to the injected shellcode. When the vulnerable function returns, instead of returning to the legitimate caller, the program jumps to the attacker's code. If the vulnerable program is running into the root privileges, this results in a root shell giving the attacker complete control over the system. This experiment clearly demonstrates how a simple programming mistake can lead to severe security consequences, including unauthorized access and privilege escalation. Understanding buffer overflow attacks is essential for both attackers and defenders as it helps security professionals identify vulnerabilities and enables developers to write safer, more secure software. In seed labs, the buffer overflow experiment is divided into 4 levels from level 1 to level 4, where each level gradually increases in complexity to strengthen the learner's understanding of exploitation techniques. Level 1 is introductory level where the main objective is to understand how a buffer overflow occurs. At this level, the vulnerable program allows simple overflowing of the buffer, and the attacker's goal is to override the return address and redirect execution, usually to injected shellcode. This level helps in understanding the stack layout and the basic concept of control flow hijacking. The level 2 increases the difficulty by slightly modifying the buffer size or stack layout, requiring more accurate calculation of offsets between an buffer and the return address. In this level, the attacker must carefully craft the payload so that the shellcode and return address align correctly in memory. This level emphasizes precision and reinforces the importance of understanding how data is stored and accessed on the stack. Level 3 introduces additional constraints such as limited buffer space or restrictions on input, making direct shellcode injection more challenging. At this stage, learners must apply deeper knowledge of stack behavior and may need to reuse existing memories, locations, or adjust payload structures to succeed. This level simulates more realistic attacks scenarios where exploitation is not straightforward and requires analytical thinking. Coming to level 4 is the most advanced level designed to closely reassemble real world exploitation challenges. In this level, the attacker must overcome stricter conditions and carefully manipulate memory to achieve successful execution redirection. Level 4 tests the learner's complete understanding of buffer overflow attacks, including stack, memory organization, offset calculation, and exploit reliability. Together, level 1 to level 4 provide a step by step learning path starting from basic overflow concepts and progressing toward advanced exploitation skills. Thank you.